morning. Are you ready to find out what Johnny's dad has to say about his mule that he's bringing home? All right, before we start, we're going to go over a few words we're going to find, and then I'm actually going to show you some pictures of a few of these things because I did not know what they were, so I had to look them up. That flowering bush in the front yard looks like a rhododendron. It's a flower like this. Rhododendron. You might have already known what it was. I did not know. But here's the bush. I guess they can be different colors. Isn't that beautiful? It has these great big beautiful clusters of flowers. That's a rhododendron. Tyler walked dolefully along with his head hung low and tears in his eyes. What do you think dolefully means? Very sad. He was tolling the rabbit into the cage with a carrot. What does tolling mean? Trying to coax him into this cage using a carrot. Coaxing, like urging him to get in there. Tea can be made from the roots of a sassafras tree. I've heard of a sassafras tree, so I had to look it up. Now this is apparently a sassafras tree. I don't have a clue where they live. But apparently you use the roots to make sassafras tea. I bet you can hear my roosters, can't you? They're crowing this morning. Anyway, that's a sassafras tree. All right. The farmer's field is not full of hay. It is sorghum. Let's see what sorghum looks like. Do you know what it looks like? You might already know. Sorghum. This is sorghum. I don't know where it's grown. I've never heard of it being grown around here where we live, but maybe it is. I don't know. That's sorghum. All right. So let's look in our book on page 104. All right, we're going to read the rest of the story. Now, and this is what I want you to look for as we read the story. Listen for it. How does Aunt Betsy's reaction to the mule make Johnny feel? Aunt Betsy, how does her reaction make Johnny feel? All right. The title of this section is called Cause for Concern. Remember, you have to follow along with me. After that, Johnny felt better. You never can tell, he said cheerfully. Maybe Pappy will be pleased to have a mule. He needs some kind of critter to help him plow his potatoes. He has to do it now all by himself with an old hand plow. Why, yes, of course, agreed the teacher. It's likely he'll be glad to get him. If only he wasn't a balker, said Johnny, wrinkling his forehead again. Hardly anybody would want a balker. Oh, don't think about it. The teacher tried to cheer him up. It's too beautiful on the mountains to get a head full of worry. Yes, it is pretty on the mountains. Johnny looked all around and forgot to worry about the mule. The air was full of the nice smell of pine and balsam, and the pink rhododendron was blooming everywhere. But the mule didn't care for anything except the ear of corn that was always just out of reach. He kept his eyes upon it and went clopping along. Johnny and the teacher felt cheerful until they came opposite Aunt Betsy's house. Aunt Betsy was sitting on the porch, busily spinning some yarn to weave into a bedspread. "Mommy, what have you got there?" she cried when she saw Johnny and the teacher and the mule. "It's a mule," Johnny replied. "I bought him at the auction for 5 cents. 5 cents! Aunt Betsy threw back her hands and laughed. Then she grew sober. "But he's not a balker, is he? I never heard of a mule's going that cheap unless he's a balker." "Yes'm," Johnny admitted uneasily. "He's a balker, all right." "Oh, my." Aunt Betsy shook her head dolefully. "I don't know what you'll do with a balker." After that, there was hardly anything the teacher could say to comfort Johnny. On up the trail trudged Johnny, feeling more dismay every minute. "The worst of it is, a mule has got a terrible appetite," he worried. "Why, that old mule could probably eat us out of house and home in no time. Miss Mary, I'm going to get that licking sure as anything. I wish I didn't have to go home at all." But the mule took them there in a hurry. Mammy and Pappy were waiting in the front of the cabin, looking down the road, wondering what kept Johnny so long. When they saw him tolling the mule along and the teacher holding the rope, their eyes popped open. What do you got there?" cried Mammy, laughing. It's mule," replied Johnny nervously. "I bought him at the auction for 5 cents." "For 5 cents? Then there must be something wrong with him," said Mammy. "Yes'm, there is a little something wrong. He's a balker, I reckon." "A balking mule!" exclaimed Mammy. "Whatever could we do with a balking mule?" I don't know, ma'am," exclaimed Johnny, glancing uneasily at Pappy. Pappy didn't say anything at all. He just rubbed his chin and looked thoughtfully at the mule. The sun was setting by this time. It was much too late for the teacher returned to town. She decided to spend the night with Johnny and his parents. Mammy set a chicken on to stew in a big iron pot, and later on they had supper, chicken and dumplings, hot biscuits, and nice cold buttermilk. For dessert, there was honey from their own beehive and a pot full of sassafras tea. It was a fine supper, but Johnny couldn't enjoy it. What was his pappy thinking about that old balking mule? What was he gonna do with him? After the meal, everyone sat around the fire, which leaped brightly in the old stone fireplace. Pappy got out his fiddle and played some merry jigs. Mammy sang some old mountain ballads for the teacher. Johnny sat in the chimney corner. He didn't feel very happy because he kept wondering if his pappy felt angry about his mule. At last he screwed up his courage and asked him. "Pappy," he said timidly, "that balking mule is going to be sort of a nuisance, I reckon." "Nuisance?" cried Pappy. "Why, I know how to make that old mule do all my plowing and hauling and turning of my sorghum meal." He winked at Miss Mary. "Yes, sirree, I know a little trick that'll make a balking mule work harder than a hornet." "What's that?" cried Johnny and Miss Mary in a breath. "Wait till morning," laughed Pappy. "Look out the window when you first wake up and you'll find out." The teacher went to bed in the spare room, and Johnny climbed the ladder to his little room in the loft. In the morning, he woke up early and looked out the window. There, pulling a plow briskly through the potato patch, was the balking mule. Hanging on to the handles of the plow was Pappy. He looked up and caught sight of Johnny. "He's a fine, strong mule," cried Pappy. "I'm much obliged to you." But the mule didn't look up, nor to the right nor to the left. He was gazing greedily straight ahead at that ear of corn that was dangled on the end of a stick in front of his nose. So that mule came in handy dandy for Pappy, didn't he? He sure did. Go back to page 104 right quick. I would like for you to read the little paragraph that talks about and describes the mountains on page 104. It's the on the right-hand side where it starts with, "Yes, it is pretty." Can you read that paragraph out loud? Have you ever seen a beautiful place that made you feel happy? Oh, I have. My home makes me feel that way. I like to go outside on a beautiful warm morning and look out over the pond and see the steam rising up over the pond, and out in the pasture you can see steam coming up off the stuff out there, and ever so often you might see a deer leaping out there. I love it out there. Now, do you remember Aunt Betsy? She was sitting on her porch. She must have been a neighbor. Now, if you were Aunt Betsy, what would you have said to Johnny? Maybe I would have said, "Okay, well, good luck with him," or something like that, maybe. I don't know, but Aunt Betsy didn't make Johnny feel very good, did she? Look at page 106. When they brought the mule up, Mammy was doing all the talking. Why don't you think Pappy said anything? He said that he was rubbing his chin, so I bet he was thinking. You think he was thinking about something? Maybe thinking about, bet I can do something with this mule. Would you like being in the room with Johnny's family and the teacher during the time that they were eating and then sitting around the fire and listening to songs and music? Would you like to have been there? Oh, I think it would be great. Nowadays, people eat supper most of the time not together. They just eat whenever they want to eat, and then everybody goes to their room or they go somewhere and they sit in front of the TV and they don't even talk. That's a sad thing. But in these days, before they had all that, that's what families did. That's a good thing, isn't it? Now, what do you think? What do you think Johnny's face looked like when he looked out the window that morning? Make that face. I can't see you, but make that face. What do you think Johnny did? I bet his mouth just went, "Oh, I bet his mouth flew open and he was like, wow. I bet his heart just leapt in him. I bet he was so excited that he had done something good that his dad was so happy about. All right, so I hope you liked that story. Now go ahead and close your book and get your work text out and turn to page 42. Now there's 3 pages, but we're not going to do them all. Okay, you're going to do 2 pages, and one's very short. One's a little bit longer, but I'm going to get a grade, 2 grades from you today. So look at page 42. Now page 43, we're not going to do that page. So you don't have to do that page, but look at page 42. Now this is going over something that you should be very familiar with. It's called cause and effect. Okay, something happens because of something else. And what happens is called the effect. Okay, so let's look at the blue box. Actually, let's look at the purple oval. It says an effect is something that happens. A cause is why something happens. Now, let's look at the little blue box. It says in training. Freddie came stamping through the house, panting and puffing. He rushed to the sink, turned on the faucet, and got a glass of water for himself. He wanted to have another one, but he decided not to. Too much water might make him slow. He had to go outside and keep practicing. The big track meet was only a week away. Now, your job is to show me that you understand cause and effect. Okay? Down below, there are 4 effects. Remember, effect is something that happens. You have to choose the cause that made that happen. Now, a good way to do that is after you read the effect, say because, and then choose the right answer. Okay? So you finish that page, and then I'm going to get a grade on that one. The other page that you're going to do is page 44. Now this page I'm also going to grade, but look at the instructions at the top of page 44. Use complete sentences. Okay? So if you don't use complete sentences, then I can't give you the full grade. I'll have to take off. I'm going to grade for each one. It's half a point for a complete sentence and half a point for the right answer. So if you don't use a complete sentence, then you won't get it all right. So make sure though when you read it, part of the question has to be in the answer. For instance, the first question, in what mountains was Johnny's town? Your answer should say, his town was in blah, blah, blah. So you need to have part of the question in the answer for it to be a complete sentence, okay? So I'm going to grade pages 42 and 44. You do not have to do page 43. And that is all for today.